Hey everybody, it's Chef Don, and today we're going to go over a ramen noodle recipe. One of the key things with the flavor is the baking soda, right? So we do what's called baking the baking soda. So we just put it on a sheet pan, put it in the oven, bake it for about an hour at a low temperature, and it changes the alkalinity of it and gives it kind of that flavor that you can't get from anything else. So we have our baking soda, some plain water. That goes in first just so the baking soda can dissolve properly. I'm using whole wheat flour. You can use bread flour or whatever flour that you like. You want to have a little bit higher of a gluten content in it for it to have the right texture. And then you add that together. You can take a spoon and mix it. You mix it with your hands just to start to incorporate everything. And then once you get it to pull together, it's a good idea to put this into a mixer with the paddle attachment and let it continue to blend and mix until it pulls together into one nice smooth dough ball. And you can see even doing this by hand a little bit. You can completely finish it by hand if you don't have a mixer at home. It's just a little bit easier because this is a stiff kind of dough and a little bit difficult to handle. So if you have the mixer paddle attachment, put it on at that point, mix it together. If you don't, just get your hands in there and start mixing it until it's completely incorporated. And you have a nice, smooth, finished dough ball. Okay, and if you need to add a little bit more flour so it's not sticky, you can do that. And then when it's all set, then what you're going to do is let it rest. You can put it in the refrigerator, and you can leave it for overnight, or just let it rest at room temperature for an hour before you try to roll it out. So we're going to slide down to our other table over here, right down there, and then I have some dough already made up. So this dough here has had a chance to rest, and I took a rolling pin and just flattened it out a little bit so I could get it into a pasta machine. Now the rolling pin, and this big one, you might not have one like this at home, but if you have a wooden rolling pin or whatever you have, you can do the whole rolling process by hand like this and then cut your noodles, but it's a lot easier if you have a machine, okay? These aren't hard to get. You can get it on Amazon, I'm sure. They run maybe about $60, but it's going to last you a lifetime, and it's nice to have. You can do the rolling, and then you have the settings to cut either a fettuccine or a spaghetti noodle. So what I did was I rolled out that pasta dough just a little bit, and then I started into the machine. You want to start at the widest setting so that it has a chance, I'll break that piece off there, so it has a chance to flatten out without ripping too much. Okay, if you try to go right to the thinnest setting that you want it to end up at, you're going to tear the dough apart. All right, a little bit of flour just to keep it from sticking, but this kind of dough doesn't need much. Okay, and then you move the setting one notch at a time, getting a little bit thinner each time until you get to the point where you have the dough at your desired thickness, so that you can cut your noodles. Okay, that's usually going to be you start at the low number, so you start at 0. And you move one number at a time on the notches. You're usually going to get to about a 4 or a 5 when you're going to have that thickness that you want. Okay, so nice and thin, but not so thin that it's not going to cut. Right, you want to have a little texture to it. Then the handle comes right off. We switch it over to the cutting app on here, and then we roll our noodles out. All right, we get little nests of noodles like this, and as they come out, you just take a knife, quick cut, and you have your little nests of noodles ready to go. Okay, so it's not a super complex recipe at all. A little time to rest it, and you're ready to go. We'll go back over to our cooking area here. So when you take one of those nests and you put it in the water, right? Nice boiling water. You want a nice hard boil. So we're gonna get that going again. Obviously, we need chicken stock, a nice, delicious chicken stock. I actually refortified this, which simply means after I had my chicken stock made, or chicken broth, I took another set of vegetables, sauteed them a little bit, added the broth to it, let it cook out for another hour or so to really deepen and develop that flavor. I also have another pot of boiling water because we're going to add a nice soft poached egg to our finished ramen. Alright, so over here I have our bowl already prepared with all the ingredients we're going to put in it. We have some shredded carrot, a little shredded daikon radish, some scallions, some bacon, some grilled chicken breast, a little fresh garlic, some bean sprouts, and then of course the egg. So we're going to poach that. That's the last thing that we're going to do. And a little fresh cilantro. Then you add the broth in. As you know, it's a very broth-based dish, and that kind of heats everything back up. It's been cooked, but now we heat it back up. The spinach, the carrot, the radish, you leave all that raw because it's cut nice and thin, so the heat from the broth will certainly cook it enough so that it stays nice and fresh and a little bit crunchy and not overdone. Okay? So we're gonna poach the egg, a fairly easy thing to do, but maybe not for everybody. So you want to have yourself a separate dish to crack your egg into. Okay. You want to crack it directly in the water, just in case the yolk breaks or you get a piece of shell, right? So I have my egg cracked. Now we're going to go back over to the stove. Okay, so again, I've got my broth getting nice and hot. I've got my nest ready to cook, and I have my water I want it just below a boil. You want to see a little bit of bubbles, but you don't want it so hard that it's going to move the egg around too much and break it. So slide that right into the water, like that. And then it only takes about a minute or so. We want to cook the white, but we want that yolk to stay raw. Now, if you don't like the yolk raw, you can leave it in a little bit longer and hard cook it. But traditionally, you want to have a little bit of runniness to that yolk. So we're just going to leave it in there. The only thing in this water, besides water, is a little bit of vinegar, and that just helps to keep the egg together a little bit more with the acid from that vinegar. So again, you can see how we're starting to form here. The white is cooked. It's separating from the bottom. It's not quite going to float to the top, but it's going to separate from the bottom a bit. So it's going to slightly float above the bottom, but not come all the way to the top. And that's how I know that I'm done. Again, I want that yolk to be just slightly, running. I want it to still be running for sure. All right, so my noodles don't take long. Nice hot water, about 30-60 seconds. That's all it takes to get those done, and boom, they're ready. Great thing about making fresh pasta of any sort, it cooks fast. So we can move over to our bowl. Like I said, we're all prepared here with all of our different ingredients that we have. Sliced up a little bit of chicken breast, right? Nice and quick, just take your chicken off the grill, slice it up, take out that little center tendon chewy piece, right? We don't want to use that. And then half a breast, whole breast, depends how hungry you are, into your bowl, right? Some of the carrot, some of the radish, some bacon, some spinach, our sprouts, right? Obviously, we've got to put our noodles in there. Then we're going to bring over our very hot broth. Okay. Just add that delicious broth in there. Oh, sizzling hot, boiling. Just fill your bowl with that delicious broth. And of course, we don't want to forget our nicely poached egg. Yeah, depending on how you like your egg, you might want to cook it a little bit further. You like the nice runny yolk, you won't. A little sprinkle of cilantro in there for me, and some scallions. And look at that, we are ready to go. Delicious. We have our noodles, we have our spinach, we have our scallion and bean sprouts, carrots and daikon radish. Fresh ginger is always good in here. We have our protein with our egg, bacon, and chicken, right? So now we are ready to eat. Enjoy.